welcome to Awake TV. So today, Sue and I are going to talk about abundance. Abundance as a benchmark to your ascension. So, I was taking a webinar with my mentor yesterday, Melissa Joy Johnson. And then she was talking about we are at the fork in the road. We have to make a choice between whether we're choosing the positive timeline, which we choose abundance, freedom, love, and what else? Joy, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Or the other timeline, which is all the timeline, the 3D timeline of fear and restriction, and it goes to more chaos and everything, like just for worse. That's not how she exactly described about, but it's kind of difficult to repeat since I only heard webinar in live once. So it was a very like inspiring topic. And then I thought this is a really important subject for us also to talk about it, because we can use abundance as a benchmark to locate ourselves where we are at. On the, of course, like we are asked to make a choice. So whether we're gonna go into the abundance, love, 5D timeline, or sticking to fear and competition and all that kind of stuff we are used to as a 3D matrix. I felt like this is a good idea to talk about it. So especially like money, when we think of money, the definition of money by itself, we can kind of like use as a benchmark to see where we are at. Mm-hmm. And like, for example, I do see money as a freedom. So more you have, more freedom you have. So means if you happen to experiencing certain uncomfortable situation, when you are like wealthy, you're gonna say fuck you and get out of this restrictive place you are at, and you can move to somewhere with more of the freedom. So, or let's say if you don't really have to answer for anyone, more you have, more freedom you have. That's how I see the money. I don't really see money as the something like evil or anything, like not at all. But it's a tool for me to get the freedom. So more is merrier. So when you have, I'm not talking about you, but when you guys are having certain point of view toward the money, and that is a part of the abundance. And then when you have legit idea toward it, that may be blocking you from releasing certain vibrations and then moving toward a new timeline. So that may be a good idea to use as a measuring stick to see where am I at. Because a lot of people do have a fear toward money. Like money is something, it's going to destroy you. Or if you don't have enough, that's it. Or something like you have to be fearful about. Or something you have to sacrifice yourself for in order to survive. And depends on your situation where you are at. You can also analyze where you are at, like in this positive timeline or negative timeline, by looking at what kind of environment you are surrounded by money. Is this going to be used against as a weapon to you, or you will rise above that, find a way to in a way nullify, find some way to see instead of being slave by money or money is being your master, you're being the master of money. So what is your point of view about abundance? So you have a bunch of different kind of thought about this.
Yeah. Well, I think money, if we're going to talk about money, with regard to abundance, I think money, like anything else, is energy. I'm not the first to say it, obviously, but um, so when we talk about getting into the flow of abundance, the energy of it, as you said, Erica, our belief about money is the first thing that needs to be examined because we can't get into a positive flow of money if we have this root belief that money, like if you want to go biblical and say money's the root of all evil, if that's something you believe, then you're never going to get into the flow of money because it deep down inside your belief system says, but money's bad. So like it's maybe this conflict with your ego saying, and your subconscious self, your subconscious self goes, oh geez, I can't have too much money or that means I'm a bad person if that's your belief system. And then your ego is going, but why can't I get money? Why am I always broke? And so there's this conflict going on of the energy. So I say examine the belief system first. Um, Myself, the best suggestion I can give is I find and I see in my lifetime many, many examples of people with lots of money that did really, really benevolent things. Not only did they live well and they didn't apologize for living well, they didn't, in other words, they didn't feel guilty for having the money, but then as their abundance overflowed, they were so happy to give it out to other people, creating foundations, doing lots of good works in the world. The people that silently donate lots of money to things like St. Jude's Children's Hospital for cancer, for example. I mean, they have a lot of um, unrecognized donors because that money is given without wanting credit for it.
Yeah.
And so, in other words, they're giving the money because they have abundance of it and they're giving it away but they don't want recognition for it. So to me, that's the kind of energy we're trying to tap into, which is it flows freely in and I freely give it back out again. And I think it was last week or the week before where I was talking about simple situations like when you're sitting at a restaurant and then it's time to give the server a tip, and I was saying how I over tip often because pretty much all the time. um and it feels really really good because what I'm doing is I'm giving my energy of appreciation to the person that just waited on me and took the time to explain things to me and kept refilling my coffee, whatever it is. Just the fact that they're there, here's another human being who's doing a service to me. I want to do something nice for them too. um for me, and I can only speak for myself, that's how I feel flow. If I go to buy something in the grocery store, and I used to be on a very tight budget for a very long time. We used to live paycheck to paycheck. So I got very price comparison, very frugal. You and I talked about this term frugal, and what I learned is that if I tell myself I can't afford the one I really want, then I'm congesting the energy. I'm keeping myself stuck in that feeling of, "Oh, I have to be frugal because I don't have enough money, or I may not have enough money." Do I really have enough money? I always did. All my life, I always did. Even when I was at my poorest, what you would call my poorest, I always had everything we ever needed and we made things work. But in order to shift from that paycheck to paycheck and I have to be very careful with my money and that sort of thing. I had to get used to buying the better item or the item that I thought, in my opinion, was the more desirable one and saying to myself, I'm worth it. My family's worth it. I want to feed them this food. I don't want to buy that just because it's cheaper. No, this one is obviously better quality. I'm going to buy this. And so, um, as I started doing that over time, I started realizing that the less I paid attention to the minute details and trying to be so frugal, the more money we kept finding ourselves having. I'd get done doing my bills for the month and I'd go, oh, wow, we're doing really pretty good. And I don't think it was because we efforted more. We always did well at our jobs, as far as performance goes. I think it was this change of attitude toward it. And the other thing I want to mention very quickly is um, when you're paying your bills or you're paying for a service or whatever it is you're doing, don't think about oh my gosh, look at all this money that I have to spend. Instead, I approach it with gratitude. Like, wow, look at how much money we have. I can afford this, and I can, I've paid my cable bill. I can buy my groceries. I paid my mortgage. On and on. Whatever your bills are, try to find gratitude because I think that again brings us into the energy we want to be in, which is we're at ease with money. We're not having a battle with money. We're not having this strife and resistance to allowing it to come in. So, like a lot of what I'm talking about is esoteric, and I get that. And sometimes it's hard to conceptualize, but start small with the little things, allow yourself to start buying the better quality grocery item, for example. And as you get more comfortable doing that, then just keep going with it. And you'll start to realize over time that, wow, you really do have all the abundance you need and it keeps coming in. Um, I think that's how it works. And I, I mean, I can't give you some quantum physics explanation as to why that is. I just know that through my own experience of all these years have been going from very poor what people would consider poor in life to being really comfortable and happy about it, and then the gratitude that goes with that, and lastly I'll just say that anytime that I've ever felt really disappointed or angry or frustrated with my lot in life, I've always been shown an example of somebody who has it really difficult, and I went, oh, okay, right, I'm not doing badly at all. I've got nothing to feel sorry about. I'm actually feeling very grateful for my life because I've just been shown an example of somebody that's had it a lot worse than me or is struggling much more than I ever was. And, I mean, we could think of images of, like children starving in some part of the country where crops don't grow and there's shortages of food, or maybe they have a very domineering government, and that's the reality that they live in. And I say to myself, I've never had to go through that, so I'm actually doing pretty good, and it helps me to have that gratitude for everything that I do have. Um, any thoughts on that, or
Yeah, the Japanese Warren Buffett, Wahei Takeda, was talking about it is very important to say thank you. So, thank you in Japanese is arigato. So, he was telling, say 2,000 arigato a day. You don't have to feel it what's for. So, I tried it for 8 months. I couldn't do it for a whole year. But he was saying once you set it and then you do it 2,000 times a day for whole year, he was saying your vibration changes. And then when you receive, let's say, huge amount of money, this is like God is asking you, how are you going to use this amount of money for embetterment for other people? Not just you, not just only you, but how can you use it? So more you are receiving it, you are being tested because it's a tool, and then you are kind of parking the money in your pond to figure out how you can use it for better for all. So that is his teaching. And then he was saying like more you feel appreciation, you will feel you will get he didn't exactly say you will become more wealthy, but basically that's how he figured out about it. And then he's always smiling and he's always joyful and he's always loving, and that's his basic attitude. So we just talked about money, but the you also wanted to introduce other part of the abundance as well. And then as far as the frequency goes, the love frequency and the money frequency, believe it or not, is the same frequency. So when people don't feel you are not worthy in love or whatever in general, then
Mhm.
when you ask yourself, your worthiness toward the money is pretty much the same when it goes to love or other things.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the abundance subject outside of money as well. So maybe we can delve into it better in this. How can we choose a better timeline when we are asking asked to choose one or another?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. So abundance, when I think of abundance, I actually don't think of money right away. I think of my health, love, as you said, in my relationships, and not necessarily, my marriage, but all my relationships, my friends, my neighbors, people that I interact with, even just somebody you're meeting at the store or the grocery store, those are relationships too, albeit very short ones. But how are we conducting ourselves every day? And I think the golden rule is it's in the Bible, it's in the Torah, the Quran, all, you really need to treat people the way that you want to be treated. And because that comes back to us. And it may not be right away, but even it's just the feeling that we get when we are being kind or generous or considerate. If somebody does something or has an accident or something like that, if our reaction to that situation is compassion instead of anger, we just walk away from that whole thing feeling a lot better about it. In other words, so that's energetic. Okay. So as you said, the vibration of money um, is really the same kind of vibration as love. It's in a similar frequency. Um, if you're being loving or if you're loving yourself and you find yourself worthy to be loved, then you're actually going to attract more and more of financial abundance to you because you're in that vibration. Um, I've often said that my worth in this world, I feel that just personally, I feel very accomplished because I have a lot of love in my life. And if that was all I had, if, for example, if I lived in a shack somewhere, as long as I was warm, I hate being cold, but that would be okay. It would be enough for me. So there's a gratitude and energy in that. That's my biggest accomplishment. Um, and I think once we can let go of a demand on something like, well, I have to have this in my life, whether it's money or objects or 50 friends versus two good ones. If we can let go of some of those demands on what abundance looks like and start really taking inventory of the abundance that already exists, then that opens the door energetically to more of it to come.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because the vibration of the abundance is also freedom, and then definitely a freedom. So when we are feeling fear, that is definitely not the freedom. So when we are choosing the timeline, which is the 5D ones, it's very important for us to ask ourselves whatever the stuff we are doing, not just anything to do with money. but money is a good benchmark to feel the emotion, because a lot of people do have a bunch of feelings and emotions toward money compared to other things. But um, when we look at it, and then when we are experiencing the certain things, then do we feel fear toward it, or do we feel love toward it? And then depends on that, we can make a better choice. Not the mind centered choice, but heart centered choice. Yes, like my mentor was talking about heart centered life versus, she didn't really specify it, but
like
the
materialism.
5D, yeah, 5D life was more like heart centered
Mm,
life. So definitely, according to me, it's not the mind centered life, because mind is always like dog chasing his tails. You
mhm.
keep on like chasing your tails, and then you are not going to get anywhere close to even the crystal clear clarity, because you're going to get into other argument or other thought, and then you're going to get more confused. That's my observation toward mind.
Yeah, it's like a slippery slope when you let your thoughts run rampant, and you're like a dog with a bone. You just can't get off a certain topic, and so your mind just expands more and more, and it's confusing, and then you can get lost in it. It's kind of like when you try to take a handful of sand and hold on to it, and it just slips through your fingers. You're no closer to getting the answer through the mind. But when we start opening our heart and listening and finding the kind of, living life in a way where our heart is happy more than our mind, because as a kid, I was always told abundance had to do with how much stuff you had or how much money you had in your bank account. As I've gone through life, I've realized that my heart is never as happy as when um, I'm like actually having good interactions with people and enjoying my time. I'm able to stay in my own moment point without going to the past or the future. And I'm not afraid. Like you said, fear just destroys that heart space, the energy of it. It just shuts it down because fear it is a mind thing. If we let our mind go too far, that's where the fears start coming in. And then it's just like this endless cycle. Like you said, you can just keep going deeper and deeper into it, and then before you know it, you're in a panic. um
Yeah,
have you noticed, and I'm just talking about America now, but how many people are diagnosed with anxiety disorder, panic disorder, all these kind of things? That was something I never heard of when I was a kid. Um, and in my 52 years, which is not a very long time, it's become almost commonplace where you hear people all around you talking about, well, I had an anxiety attack, or I have anxiety disorder, or I take this pill or that pill. And what is everybody so damn anxious about? Well, it's that mind thing. It's like when we don't, if we go into fear and then we let our mind take over, it just runs rampant and it controls everything, and it shuts us down from that energy, that, the heart energy that allows the abundance to come in.
yeah.
Um,
Thinking about possible scenario made up by mind based on the
yeah.
past event, and then you will get scared of
Hmm.
your mind prediction.
Yeah. When I was doing my graduate studies, and I'm trying to remember who the scientist was that he was a scientist of psychology, of course, but and it was a he, I know that. But there were many studies done about fear and people's reaction to fear and those kind of things. But the conclusion was, I want to say it's over 90%. That may
Mhm.
be high, but I think it was that high. Over in this longitudinal study, over 90% of what we're afraid of never even comes to pass. That's huge. And like if you listen to Eckhart Tolle, so let's go to the etheric. if you listen to him, and he says, all of our suffering has to do with our thoughts about a thing, not about what's actually going on, but we suffer mostly because of what we're thinking. And I agree with him.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because most of the things I've ever been afraid of just have not turned out the way I thought they would, and usually much better. So, or if I thought something bad was going to happen and it actually did come along, it wasn't as big a deal, and I could handle it too. And so that
Mhm.
empowerment, um, over time, we become less fearful because we realize our own power. It's like, okay, so the shit hit the fan and I dealt with it. So what? I really didn't have to be so afraid of it as I was.
Yeah, so that is a kind of the choice we are asked to make in a big way, like this September and October. But we are making the choice of, whether are we going to stick with fear vibration, or, of course we are not perfect and we are learning this, right? Because 3D Earth and the 4D Earth is more of fear oriented. And then when we are accustomed to this vibration, and from getting out of this matrix to the love and the freedom and the frequency of heart centered life, which is very new instead of mind center, right?
Yeah.
So, what was your guide saying about um, abundance? You were talking about something.
Oh, the notes I was writing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a couple things down. So first of all, start to really fall into deep appreciation for what you do have. That's number one.
Oh, that's
Uh,
what my mentor was talking about it yesterday. That's
Deep
one of the key
appreciation.
into the abundance. Like
Yeah.
that having abundance vibration means appreciate what you already have.
Yep. And then the other thing I wrote down, because I do automatic writing when they go really fast. So I write it down so I don't forget. But they said, don't forget about the soul plan. Some things we are wanting may not be what we need to experience, in order, it's not exactly what the soul came here to go through. So, in other words, we make a soul plan for our life, and there's still free will. But there's things that we wish to accomplish within an incarnation. And so sometimes what we think we want and we're asking for, and we're doing the law of attraction and all these other things, and we're going, why isn't this happening? What they were saying to me is that, it would be contrary. Sometimes what we ask for would be contrary to what our soul's plan is for us, in the sense that it's a lesson we're trying to learn about something, and if we all of a sudden got the keys to the kingdom, we wouldn't go through the steps that we need to go through to have that lesson fully integrated into our beings. So, um, sometimes when, basically what they're saying is sometimes when the answer is no, it's because it's not conducive to what you really came here to do and experience. So for example, I'm trying to think of a good example. If I wanted, um, if I wanted, okay, so back in the day, I really wanted to be an artist. Um, as a child, I always imagined myself being this great painter. And my parents really, really discouraged it. They told me how, oh, there's no money in that, and blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty good at it, but, I didn't go as far as I could. If I had gone down that path, I never would have learned how to be a social worker and to work with people and to, learn all the things that I learned. Um, and give back to people what I learned from myself, and which is kind of my mission. It's like I learn things and I see how they work in my life, and then I just want to pass it on to somebody else so it can help them. Um and so if I had gotten my wish and I had become this amazing artist. Who knows? I mean, I could have been reclusive. I could have, but I wouldn't do what I was doing then and what I'm doing now, which is working with people, which is actually my real passion. I still love to get my paints out in my free time and do that kind of thing, but that wasn't my soul's mission coming here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, what we think we want could come from ego too, not coming from your soul or heart. So that's another thing. And what's another thing your guide is talking about?
Well, I think just also what we've said earlier is abundance doesn't mean just money. So like, really pay attention to your beliefs about what is abundance and, super hunt examples in your own life for how you already are abundant. That's connected to gratitude and that kind of thing. But I mean, really identify, if you have to make a list, write it down on paper, all the things that I have in my life or the states of being or things that I'm grateful for that prove that I'm already abundant. Show it to yourself. Write it down on paper or talk about it or think about it, whatever way works for you. But that and then what happens when you do that is you automatically get into the feeling and vibration of abundance. And then guess what? You're a match for it. It can't not come to you.
Yeah. So people do talk about, I hate when people talk about Pollyanna thinking, but I think that's a really great attitude, like think like a Pollyanna. But when you start counting the blessings, you have, even if you are having a really, really challenging time, you at least have a five thing you can be really thankful for. But when you do that, don't compare with your friend who has
Oh
multi-million.
gosh, yeah. Good
you know?
point. Good point. That is gonna derail you every time. We're
hmm
not keeping people, we're not 5D, and going into this new consciousness has nothing to do with keeping up with the Joneses or competition, or it's about unity consciousness. It's about helping our brothers and sisters. It's about coming together as one. But on the way there, like if we can start recognizing what we already have, that's a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, because blueprint. My guide was talking about blueprint because I do follow a certain business coach of myself, and then they're talking about following the blueprint of your coach is really good because he makes $5 million a year. However, your blueprint and his blueprint is different. So you can follow him at a certain extent until you master it. Then, after you master, you need to kind of emulate your own way from there on. Because
Yeah.
if you have a certain, like the basic stuff you already built by his way, then you don't have to really follow his method to T. That's what my guide was saying. And then I was kind of like, it made sense to me, but it kind of like, I was like, okay,
What does that mean? What
I
does that
didn't,
mean?
I didn't like the answer because it's kind of easier to follow somebody else's blueprint from the T, and then okay, once you follow it, you get there. Instead of okay, you followed, so you got a basic. Now you have to figure it out your own blueprint to conquer it.
Yeah, but that's where the heart centered, like you were saying earlier, that's where that comes in.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
when
I know.
your heart's calling you to do something in a different way, we've said this before, what a boring world it would be if we all did the same thing. I mean, we all have our own missions here, and our, yours and my mission are similar, but we can agree they're not the same, and
Yeah,
we have different methods of how we do what we do. Um, and I mean, that's what makes life beautiful. The fact that we all do have our unique way of doing things and expressing ourselves, and that's so yeah, I mean, I totally get it, what your guys are saying, yeah, go ahead
Yeah,
and follow the blueprint, and take out of it what applies to you, and then, if there's something in there that doesn't really resonate with you and you go, I don't really that's not how I feel like I wanna do it, then go your own way, kinda
even
make
if
it your own.
recently, like they're saying, like after you grow out of it in a way, and then it was kind of like last how many months? Last maybe 3 4 months, they started telling me to go with the flow, you know, instead of
Mhm.
go with the schedule I was so accustomed to. And then that was kind of like, okay, I have to follow my intuition and go with the flow and be free, and then following, not,
Inspired
not
actions, right? When
yeah,
you had
not the so solid anything, and then you kind of have to trust the uncertainty, which is kind of like comes into the another point yesterday what my mentor was talking about uncertainty.
Mhm.
So we need to embrace the uncertainty to go into this new territory and a new beginning and a new timelines of what we have never we did as a starseed, but as a human being we never ever experienced it before, which is more like abundance new earth timeline. And then there is an uncertainty,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
because
yeah.
it's not like we've been there before
Yeah, it's not like we were watching a
consciously.
movie and we skipped to the end and we found out what the whole thing was about. We're in the movie. We're
Yeah,
and we're creating it as we go. It
yeah,
wouldn't be any fun if we knew how it ended. I mean, what would be the point of incarnating? It's like, well, if we already know how it's all gonna turn out, I mean, it'd be more comfortable, but it'd be boring as hell. And what's the point? You were talking about that going in the flow, and it reminded me of a recent Cryon video I was listening to. Lee Carroll channels Cryon, and he said something that made so much sense to me. I hope it does to you guys too. He says, you get an inspiration. How do you know when is the time to act?
no,
And I was like, "Oh, I gotta hear this because 'cause I've had that question so many times, like, I've been doing this quantum healing thing for some time now, and I haven't, like, gone fully into it yet, and I keep going, "When's the right time? When's the right time? When do I just keep hearing from my guides, "Wait, wait, it's not time yet. You don't wanna manifest something, of this magnitude in the energy that you're in now. You wanna wait until you're in your next place." So I've been waiting, but Cryan said, a metaphor which I think is helpful. He says, so you make the reservation, you put your intention out there, you plan on doing this thing, this whatever it is you're called to do, and you're excited about it. So naturally, and so you think you've bought your ticket to the train. You get to the station and the train isn't there yet. And a lot of people will immediately go, well, I did it wrong, or I must have been wrong about this, or I screwed it up, or something like that. What if it is just a matter of the train isn't the train isn't there yet, but it's coming, right? And when it gets to the station, you're going to know it's there and you've got your ticket already, you're ready to go, so you get on it because it's there. You can't get on a train that isn't there yet. So what I'm saying is, like, if in your soul plan, if all these yes, you had the inspiration to do it because that's what your soul was telling you to do. Now we just have to wait a little while for that manifestation of it to see it in the material world because it's divine timing, right? It's not going to happen 1 minute before it's supposed to. And so people might get really frustrated with me about that concept because I've talked about it before in sessions with people. And well, why isn't it now? Why isn't now the right time? I did all the work I was supposed to do. I invested my money. I took the course. I did the steps. I do my 2,000 prayers a day. I've done all the things they've told me to do. Why isn't it happening? And the only thing I can say is it's not time yet. But don't give up on it. If your heart really tells you it's what you want to do and you really have invested all this intention and action and whatever else you've invested into it, then maybe you just need to be patient a little bit longer.
And also, when while someone like me who wants to get everything in as timely as possible, you can ask your guide, your team to give you next step. So they're gonna give you the bite-sized step. So you feel like, okay, you're not gonna be just waiting. You have something to do while you are some big stuff gonna be manifesting, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna give you some kind of bite step actions. So
And it's
time.
always a good idea to do what you like in between, while you're waiting for this big thing to come that you think, "Oh, okay, I'm really going to be happy when this finally happens." While you're waiting, yeah, keep doing the bite-sized steps, but do some other things that bring you joy, gardening, painting, fishing, hunting, you know what I'm getting at. Like do something else also, whatever it is that brings you joy while you're waiting, because then you can also take the pressure off of it too. We can cause resistance if we put too much pressure on an outcome.
Yeah. Plus, waiting energy is never good, because if you wait, you're gonna be in the energy of waiting. So, like, the best way is to focus on now and do bite-sized step stuff, whatever that is. So eventually, you want to get to the place wherever you want to be, and that's like probably a good idea, especially like in the relationship. Waiting is never a good idea, you know,
Mm,
in the twin flame too. So, and the plus, like energetically, it's not just me. I did hear from the same thing from, it could be my mentor, but could be somebody else. But when you are having this vibration of waiting, like you're gonna create some waiting, like stagnation kind of vibration
mhm,
instead of like moving forward.
mhm.
So being in the vibration is one thing, but a lot of us are still like doing action. So like while we have this goal, whatever that is, and then when we are being very careful about observing what the next step is given by guide, and then next step wouldn't be anything like logically makes sense, because they tell you to go to Paris. Means you want to go to Texas, but they tell you to go to Paris first, and then Germany. But you feel like, okay, I want to go to Austin. Why are you asking me to go to Paris? But when you get this, instruction to go to Paris, you do that step first, you know, unless you really, really don't want to. But you feel like you do that, and then just have trust, like trust you're guided, and then so when, especially when you're going through uncertainty, time of uncertainty, like many of us are experiencing right now, um, go with baby steps of whatever the steps you're given, and having trust you get there. But
Yeah,
the choice is, they're saying, choices you need to make right now. So let's say you make a choice of, okay, I'm choosing this um, timeline of 5D, love, freedom,
abundance,
abundance,
joy.
joy.
Mhm.
So you decide that. And then next thing you want to ask is, okay, how can you won't make it happen tomorrow, but how can you start walking toward that goal? What's the next step, next bite-sized step you can do on your own?
Yeah,
That could be something you're gonna stop watching news, or stop watching alternative truth news or whatever that is, right? So you can do that, but you have to set the intention first. So that will be kind of like shifting you toward a certain timeline.
Yeah, no fear. I mean, if we had to make it real succinct, what you're guided to do, like you said, I thought I was going to Austin, but I'm feeling like I need to go to Paris. Well, I'm going to Paris. Not give yourself 500 reasons why you should be worried about that or fearful, and go with that inner guidance. But everything, like you said, baby steps. If you just start with turning off all news and staying in your own focal point, that's the biggest step you can take towards getting out of fear and choosing that 5D timeline rather than the fear and destruction timeline. Because
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's going to have a good outcome if that's the case.
yeah, and then do something you get really excited about. Um, before we go on the share our last tips, like I'm writing my second book called The Starship Alchemist, and then I wasn't really keeping on my word of I'm gonna write this book for 2 months, so I finally decided to do that. But anyhow, um, I don't decide when to write this book. When I feel inspired, I write it. So since I had my mentor's webinar yesterday, and then she was talking about abundance, and I was like, okay, I better talk about that topic. I didn't decide the next chapter, but because of that, now I have a new chapter to write about. And
Hmm.
then that's almost like you can construct it's a book, but you can construct something with a flow instead of okay, you're gonna have this rigid structure of chapter one is this and the chapter five is that. That's all the way of the matrix. But
Yeah,
new
you have to have an
matrix,
outline and then follow it to the T, right?
yeah, and
That's a
then
lot of pressure. I think
and
that's why a lot of writers drank a lot.
yeah. So new outline is more like the flow. See what you are experiencing outside of writing, and then what you feel like get inspired to write about because of
Mhm.
your own experience of whatever the stuff you are encountering, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I
do
agree.
you have any last tips for our audience for them to make the better choice of this true choice? Yes.
Last tip. I'm going to make this very as concise as I can, but we're moving. The only difference from 3D to 5D, in my opinion, and 4D is just the transition dimension, where you do all the questioning, the dark night of soul, and everything. But the difference between 3D and 5D is 3D believes in duality, separation, that we're not part of each other and we're not part of God. And so there's wars and competition and fighting and fear and control and all those things that, make us upset and scared and angry. 5D is the understanding that we are all one, we all come from source or prime creator, and that we're just so much happier, so much more abundant, so much more love when we're working together and honoring each other. So that's my opinion and my last tip of conceptualizing what is the difference. So if we can drop the fear and start moving into the heart space, go into love, generosity, compassion, cooperation, then that's when the abundance is going to flow because you can't go to 5D and not have abundance. It's not possible. Make the choice, drop
Yeah.
the fear.
Yeah. So 3D is a victim consciousness world, and then 5D is empowered kind of world.
Hmm.
So whenever you make a choice or how you decide to vibrate, right? Or feel the emotion or whatever the thing you are facing in your life, you want to ask your question, are you being a victim right now? Are you thinking like a victim? Are you thinking like a victim so you feel like, okay, I can fight? I'm not saying go fight, but I'm saying you cannot stick to your truth because I have no power.
Mhm.
I cannot stick to my truth because certain group is too big for yourself. But 5D consciousness is empowerment. It means you know each of you a creator. You are creating this matrix. You are creating this program. So once you drop your victim consciousness and you are realizing you are the creator, you can start making the conscious choice of what kind of world you're creating and what kind of choice you're making in everyday basis.
Mhm.
And then when you make the choice from your heart center, trust that it will guide you to the highest timeline.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to share.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Great. That's awesome.
Awesome. So next week, Sue and I gonna talk about some other topic. So thank you so much for watching. Please share, like, subscribe, and we see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.